Hello, this is Kavita Kapoor Khasa, and we are on Marriage No Marriage with a very special guest, Ina Basur from Gurgaon, Delhi. And मैं जितना बोलूँ उतना कम है. But there's a huge list of things that I want to say what she is because she's a so thoroughbred humanoid. And if you don't know what humanoid is, you have to come to access classes to know what humanoid is. She's done puppetry. She's done theater and animation, photography, film, television, digital phone apps, installation, murals, packaging, product. I mean, which field has she left? None at all. But what is a forte? For 20 years, she's been with, a designer wear, and the decor that you can see behind her is also designed by her. By chance, if you're interested in that, she can guide you on anything, be it the exterior or the interior of your house or your being, because she's a certified facilitator and she is also a right voice for you facilitator. We'll get to know what right voice for you is. And she's also written a chapter in Earth Healing book. And she designs earth homes with her partner Adish Chakrabarti, who is also her partner in life. And that's why I've invited her, because she's a very uniquely different humanoid. I won't call her a human being, because it's like what next and what next, and that's her energy. And she's always been creating, and I know her since I met her and I saw her in 2050. Yeah, since then I've been in awe of her, and I'm so glad she's on this show. Thank you, Ina, for being there.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me on and thank you for the introduction.
Oh yeah, because that's your and you know what, humanoids can introduction can go just endless, and I just want you to talk about it because there's so much to know from you, so much to learn from you. Because there is something that I want to talk about today. Are we on the same page? Because you have a partner who has done a lot of few access classes, if not all. And how is it that how is your relationship, and we're talking about marriage or no marriage. So when you guys have to be, but I want to, before we go there, I want to know what is right voice for you. Does that help in couple therapy kind of a thing? Is it like, can you voice it out? There's so many people who come to me and like, हम बोल ही नहीं पाते अपने पति को, or the vice versa. I mean, men also are not able to speak to their husbands. So does that give them a voice? What is right voice for you? If you could just, enlighten us.
Right voice for you is actually an invitation to be present with everything without a point of view, without barriers, and willing to be vulnerable and just be there
Wow.
with all that's available, with the person, with all that they be, with all that you be, with all that's available and all that's possible,
Without a judgment.
without a judgment, without a conclusion, and without a point of view. Yep. Or like an interesting point of view.
Or
I
like
mean,
in
you can change. You can. It's okay for you to have a point of view, but you can change it at any point.
so does that help you to like really come out and speak your truth, like, and say without getting embarrassed or ashamed of yourself?
Yeah, like I think one of the key things that we really, we're so used with, especially when we are in a relationship and we are, or we with people. I mean, if you're on this planet, there are other people. You have you have to deal with them. So the one of the things is we're so aware of what everyone else requires and desires, which is cool. We often don't ask ourselves what is that we require and desire, and it's always helpful to be able to actually know what is it that you desire and require, and be able to actually communicate that or be willing to have that for yourself so that others around you can have that as well.
Wow. Because yes, a lot of people don't know what they desire. So
But then
coming,
they expect them others to know.
yeah, they do. That तुम्हें पता क्यों नहीं था, that
If
kind
you
of.
know me, you
Yeah.
should know this about me.
It's like, the guesswork keeps on, keeps them guessing, and then they don't get it right, and then there's a trauma that gets created for no reason. So okay, having said that, I mean, coming back to the topic of marriage or no marriage, and are you on the same page? When there are some collective decisions to be made. Okay, like you want to come to a point that you're probably buying something for the house, and it's like a common thing. So how do you deal with a person who's not on the same page?
That's a great question. Well, you have to be willing for them to have their point of view.
Then how do you kind of come to a place where you can have something together? And suppose that red vase that is kept behind, and you like red and the other person doesn't. How do you kind of, like, what tools can you use? Like, how do you kind of get them around and get to like whatever is placed there? Because it's really looking nice. A red vase with the black and the stuff that you've kept behind. That's so beautiful and very aesthetically done. So, but yeah, but that's your way of looking at things. But if the other person has a different point of view and they don't like red or whatever that is, how does that person? How do you get around with it, or does one have to go through a lot of arguments and drama, or you can just have it very simply put that this would look really beautiful? How would you put it across? What would you do?
Oh my goodness. Where do I start? Okay, so one thing is that the willingness to actually ask, is it relevant?
Is it real?
Like, yeah, because we tend to make things matter so much that actually don't matter that much. So is it going to be relevant? Like, is it relevant for you? Is it relevant for what you're desiring to create? Is it relevant for the future that you would like to live?
Wow. So you mean to say we need to ask those questions that before we kind of choose something for the house also? Is that what you mean?
Well, one of the things I can give a personal example. One of the things that when we are looking for a house or when we are looking for something, I mean, between Audrish and me, we've moved, I think, 5 homes. But when we are looking for a house, we are always looking at what will create more and what will create greater. And we are also looking at, and and you might not be on the same page, but you can always ask for that to show up that will work for both
Oh wow.
and that will contribute to more.
Oh yes.
So
Oh
you
wow.
get more convincing required in that. They can have their own point of view and their choices. And because the most irresistible that you can be is to and the is to give choice.
Oh yes. And be an allowance of their choice.
Yeah. And that is irresistible when you're like when you are being that space or where someone has choice.
Yeah.
So what does and look at the sense of what future does that create?
That's so beautiful. Because so okay, if one partner wants to have a child and the other doesn't, so it's the same thing that with what house is going to create greater, and whether like you leave them with a question, is this going to create greater or not, right? I mean, that's the question you're going to ask with you.
Yeah, like when we were looking for this house, at that point we were looking at so many other things. We were looking at other possibilities. We were looking at a house in the hills, and we were looking at a house in other parts. When we were like, okay, what if we could have more than one? And what is that we desire to create? And so one of the things that uh, started looking at, we looked a lot of different kind of things. We looked at a 1 bedroom studio apartment. We looked at like where one of us could come and stay if we wanted to, if we were in the hills. So we explored, we went to the hills and we saw different properties. So we explored different things. And if there was something that he was not looking at, but something that was pinging me, I would explore that and see what that is, and then present it to him and see if that is something that would work. So you are creating. So what if that's interesting. So how much do we, so where do we like function from? It's an either or universe. Like for me to have choice, someone else has to give it up. That seems to be what where a lot of people function from. That for me to have choice, someone else has to give it up. And when someone else has to have a choice, I have to give up me. But what if that's the biggest lie you have ever been told or haven't bought or haven't
Yeah.
ever told yourself? What if the more you chose for you, there's more for everyone? Because each time that I am willing to choose more for me, there's more for everyone to
Yeah.
have it or not have it.
That's That's a different way of looking at things. Normally we say, okay, you like it, then okay, we'll go with it. I'll sacrifice my choice for you. And then later on when we're choosing something else, then we're like, now it's your time. Last time I sacrificed my choice for you. This time you
Yeah.
do that. It's
Yeah, that's like keeping a scorecard.
yeah.
But what does that create, keeping a
Nothing. It creates a lot
scorecard?
of bickering and a lot of like yuck
It
energy.
doesn't allow you to. So how much of that do you use to not create what you can be creating?
I mean, a lot. But then, so okay, so here we know that Adish is. Am I getting his name correct? Adrish.
Odrish.
Adrish, sure. Adrish has done a bit of access. He's aware of these questions, and he's an access person to some extent. But how do you deal with a person who has not done access? He's not on the same page. So his way of perceiving things is slightly different because it's from this reality. And then how do you kind of talk it out and kind of explain that I'm not against you, I'm with you, but I could have my own choice while you could have yours too. We're not against each other, we're just,
Uh,
yeah,
the thing with is that
more like a different wavelength. How do people kind of come around with each other with different wavelength?
I want to say like by constantly being in the question.
So
Because
person
one of the
who's done
things,
access can be in a
I have
question.
an interesting story though.
Yes.
When like how we resist the thing that might contribute to us the most, might be
Yes.
even our capacity. So my mom actually, my mother was an access consciousness certified BAS facilitator, and she became before.
A lot of people, yeah. Yeah.
And she kept pinging me, she kept telling me these things, but she had tried every modality, and we had tried every modality. She done, like, if yoga, you have to get up at 5 o'clock and do yoga. If you have to do, so by the time she got, like, access came about, which actually might have worked, which
Yeah,
I
but
know works, using it, life changing. She kept giving us these tools and questions. I would ask the question. She gave us how does it get any better? I started asking, few things changed. I was like, that's cool, give me another question. But she asked us to, like, join the classes, or I was like, too expensive. She'll ask us to, do other things. So I was like totally like, nah, and my whole family got into it.
yeah,
So
but no, I want to,
my-
before you go to that, you just simply said, oh, too expensive. How does one deal with that? Okay, I know I'm digressing, but I want to know. A lot of people say, oh, access is too expensive.
yeah,
How would you
I'm
address
getting to that.
that? Okay.
So you're in the future. You're a futurist.
Yeah.
You've already pulled it out of my head. So my mom was that. So she kept pinging us. Then she would leave some, books, being you or something, or some material, and I wasn't looking at it. And then Audrish picked up something, and he started reading it at night, like before we went, like when we went to bed, before sleeping. And he would read it, and he would go, "This guy making a lot of sense. This
Okay.
tool, you know what? Hear this out. We could totally use it." Like, he did that for 3 days, and I was like, "Damn it! I will have to read the stuff and choose the stuff that my mom has been telling me, because you have to resist. You have to resist your mom, right?"
Yeah.
So that's how I started looking at access, and then I started reading what he was reading, and it started expanding both our worlds, and I could sense that our worlds were expanding when we were reading it. And because it was the first time that we realized that someone is actually, I was like, holy cow, I've always known all of this stuff,
Yeah.
you know that. And so I think that occurred for like another couple of days, and I picked up the phone and said, "Mom, we're coming over, please can you create a bars class for us?" And
Wow.
we did, and we went. And like, even like the first class that I chose, because you have all of these things, but I like, you're functioning from this reality of like, but I have to buy a car, I have to buy a house, I have to do this, I can't send on access classes. But what started shifting for me was that it took me a while to choose my first foundation class, and what if that was okay. But when I did, it
And you
started
chose it with
changing.
your partner, like you chose it with your partner, right?
No, I just me chose it.
Okay.
When I chose it, everything started changing. and
Wow.
or, and then I was like, money is not relevant. I wanted more. I am having more. So the foundations are changing everything, and that change was like so what, like more of like
Yeah.
sense of me.
Yeah.
Like, can you sense that energy? Yeah.
Yes.
So so that's how I started choosing more and more of access classes. And Advish came along for the ride for a while. Like we attended a lot of classes together. Like
Last I met you, I think I saw you in the Right Voice for You class only. In
in Bombay. Yeah.
that was 2015.
That was a while ago. Yeah. And then he just stopped. And he stopped choosing to attend classes, but he did other stuff. And I would ping him a couple of times and I'll tease him a few times, but he didn't. So what if that was okay too?
Okay. You were basically, you mean to say you were in allowance of he not choosing access and choosing something else?
Choosing the allowance of him having choice.
Wow, that requires a lot of allowance.
Allowance.
Thought.
Allowance is
It requires,
allowance does not mean doormat. Allowance means yeah, allowance doesn't mean that giving up on knowing what is true for you. Like a doormat would be okay, he's not choosing it, so I won't also choose it. And there
yeah.
might have been a few times when I started choosing more and he didn't, and the classes that I chose went more expensive, and he was like, hello, let's put this money here. And I was like, okay, what's it gonna take for me to create both?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
what if I could create? And then so there's so many things. Like when I was traveling, I started traveling so much for access classes. Now we're locked. Remember those days when we used to travel for classes? But yeah, so when I started traveling and um, so I was away for so long, and we have other businesses, and he was like, hello, what's going on? But what if you were willing to have that conversation? That's the uncomfortable. Every time that I've been willing to have the uncomfortable conversation with him and been vulnerable with what's going on for me and what's going on for him, being willing to receive that, something greater has come out of it.
Tell,
Even if that time I was going, what the hell? I don't want to see what he's showing me. I don't want to listen to that. I want to choose what I'm. But the more that I've chosen to have the vulnerability of looking at, okay, if I'm getting upset about something, or if I'm getting bugged or irritated about something, what's in it for me? What is it that I can choose different here?
wow. So no, I mean, that's a lot of muscle to build actually over a period of time. And how do you go to discussing this uncomfortable without with the drama trauma? A lot of people come to a discussion after doing some drama.
You have to allow the drama,
You allow them. Oh, that's so
and
cool.
have fun with it.
And have fun with it.
You
Wow, interesting. So no,
Because that's one thing we avoid. So anything that we're avoiding any energy, we've decided that's wrong, that's bad. There's
yeah.
a judgment there, and we'll try and avoid it. And anything that we are avoiding, we'll continue to create. So for you to actually have total choice is the space where you're willing to be anything and go, okay, that's what I'm being. Okay, today's going to be a grouchy day.
Wow.
Warning, you don't want to mess with me today.
Oh yeah, so you get to know what you're going through, and you kind of tell them, this is what I'm going through, and it's like an out thing. So don't, yeah. So does that really work?
It depends on who you're with. If
You,
it's not working, why are you with them?
oh yes.
Next.
And okay, just for fun, I want to ask, who has got more allowance, you or Rajesh?
I want to say him,
Yes. Oh wow.
but I get that both of us have a very different kind of like, no, what's different kind of allowance? I think it's,
In different segments, you have more.
yeah.
All right. Okay. So tell me one thing, that if do you get some situation where you're really stuck, and what kind of situation show up then?
And
And
so when you're stuck, what then?
No, do you get stuck in situations, and then how do you kind of tackle that? Because I want to know that there are some stupid ideologies that your our partners have, and then how do you kind of deal with that?
You have a look at it,
Again,
bluntly honest. What am I choosing here? What am I creating here? Am I choosing to fight? Am I choosing to be right?
oh, that's the most important thing. I think, yeah, we forget to ask that.
Am I choosing to be right? Am I trying to make him wrong? Am I like, what's going on? And like, mostly when you're stuck, it's what's the gift in that?
Yeah.
What's the gift of that? Like, what can you actually now really look at that will create a different future?
And then you come to your awareness, and then you can one partner change the situation if you
Yeah,
drop. Yeah.
yeah. Like a lot of times when I'm not being in allowance, if he's being in an allowance and space with it, it's easier for me to change it.
So no, so if for an access partner, do you really get to fight or no? It's like, oh, I pop, you I pop, I pop, that kind of thing.
You
How
have to be willing to. You have to be willing to for whatever shows up. But the more you're willing for that to show up, the more choice and space you have with it.
wow, that's so beautiful.
So the more you and it is a bit of like it is a bit of asking for it it's like a choice every moment, but that's the fun part. That's what access consciousness invites you to, is being more present in your life, actually living it as an adventure. And if you're trying to be right, it's very difficult for it to be an adventure because you constantly have to and it's funny, like there are funny things happen, um, like I would say, I'm looking for an example, these cute things that we do, uh, like you would wow, there was something that was if he would do something that, like, it's what if it was play and fun, and you could go like, that might. So it's like it's how much time you've got. It's like there's so much there, so much information. But that's one of the things, like with relationships, right? So what is it that will actually create more ease? If your priority is to create more ease, not easy. Easy is like getting out of it and not looking at it. If your target is to create more ease, then you look at everything with a bluntness, with a being bluntly honest with yourself and go, okay, what am I choosing here? What is that creating? And when something is bugging me, or something that actually shows up in a quick way in my world, I'm like, okay, there's something that I have not been able to look at before that I can look at now.
Right.
So, and then your willingness to look at it can actually start flipping. And the more you don't have a like the have more allowance for yourself in showing up, the more you can have choice with it.
Wow. So no, so would you encourage others to do couple classes in Access? Like, would you really recommend people to choose together rather than one person doing and the other doesn't do?
Well, it totally depends. I don't think I won't subscribe it. I would go, but that's the whole fun thing about relationship. The only way it's going to work is if you're looking at what's going to work for you. If you're doing this utopian ideal of what a relationship is supposed to be, and we Indians do it a little bit more extensively, especially Indian women,
Yeah.
that of how the husband or how this dream house has to look like and dream life has to look like, all those utopian ideas. The moment you're willing to let go of those, the more you're willing to go, okay, is this really my reality? What is true for me?
Yeah.
What would I like to create? What would I like to have as my life? Then those choices start presenting themselves to you. And sometimes those choices are not comfortable because they're little different than what you've been choosing so far.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes when you start asking it, you have to become aware of the points of views that you have that
True.
might be keeping it from showing up.
Yeah.
It just helps at all.
Absolutely. So no, say more on how an access couple would be different than the others. If they are an access couple, how different would they be from the the regular, couples. Have you come across access couples? You have, because RD sir and Kiran ma'am are an access couple. How are they different from the rest of the people who have not done access at all, or one has done access and the other hasn't, and all? What is the difference that you perceive?
Well, access tools, I've met people who've not done access consciousness, but I use at being that space and being the tools in a very different way. So I don't get that. I won't say that access consciousness is the answer.
Okay.
Access consciousness gives you the tools. There's a set of tools that if you choose to use them will create more ease in your life and more joy and allow you to be more and more of you and have more choice and more possibilities.
Definitely,
It
yes.
empowers you to know that you know, and that's the greatest gift of access consciousness.
Sure.
However, you could be that and have that and use that in any way. So I would say a lot of times people who are maybe not in access but have that generosity of spirit, but people who also are in access and have that. So however, having the access tools, for me, I can say, and I've seen that in so many other people, has created more space. Because when I actually started using the tools, I was functioning, and I still am in so many ways functioning from the limitations, limited points of views about how relationship is supposed to be. And
Yeah.
every day you become aware of where you're functioning from that, the
Yeah, true.
smallness of things rather than what you could be choosing.
True, true.
So it's a daily ask.
It's a daily answer. So no, I would want you to say a few more words. What would you leave our audience with? Are you on this? If you're not on the same page, or you are on the same page, what is it that you would like to tell the audience? Like, how do you kind of sum it up, if I have to say?
That if wanting everything to show up exactly the way you think it should show up is a utopian ideal that will not get you to what actually you desire.
Wow.
However, if you're willing for it to show up in whichever way, oh my goodness, there's a whole world of possibilities waiting right for you.
That's brilliant.
There's a whole lot of contribution, and everything desires to be to you. That the moment we start giving up all those points of views of how it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to look like, is where you can have more of you.
So you basically mean to say that supposed to look like is nothing but a utopian ideal, right? What else is,
Yeah, what
what can it create? When you're in a question, you're more in allowance of having something different. It doesn't
yeah,
have to.
like supposed to be would be that you're born, you get you go to school, you get a education, you graduate, you go to go to college, you study, you get
It,
a job, you find someone, you get married, you have two kids, then you go on vacations every now and then, and you die. So
yeah,
that's the life that we are told we're supposed to live.
yeah.
Or you could live the life that you're not supposed to. What
Wow.
would that be like for you? What if that's the adventure worth living?
Yeah. What if? Yeah, that's so different and unique, and you creating your life in a different way than the run of the mill. Wow.
And if that works for you, that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, we're not making that wrong. That,
No,
okay, don't do this. We're not saying that, but it's everything is a choice, and if you like it different, then you just choose something different.
yeah, like wherever you have a sense of frustration is where you're not being you. So ask, if I was being me here, what could show up?
So people, when you're frustrated, you're definitely not being yourself. So choose something different, and choose you more than
What's
anything
the
else.
one thing you can choose today that will give you more sense of you?
What's the one thing you can choose that could give you a sense of you? That's
Everything.
wonderful. And people, you want to connect with Ina because she does these courses called Right Voice for You, which not only means that you can, have a beautiful voice, but it just opens you up if you don't have a voice, and you would like to have a voice and voice it out. So connect with her. I think
It's
that's
how it's the expression of you in the world.
it's the expression of you. If you would like to be yourself, that is, you have to make a choice to step up and be different and be you. So thank you, Ina. That was so brilliant. It was so, I just had so much fun. This is so different than whatever we've discussed in the past. I mean, every episode is so different and so unique. Thank you for
Thank
being.
you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. So that's it for now. See you guys. Bye. See you next week with something different.
Bye. Thank you.